Everyone wants to be a princess, to meet the prince of their lives. But the girl here remains forever in a dream. Her name is Wei Mi. A male heartthrob stepped out of a Porsche, causing a mob of fanatical fans to rush towards him. But it wasn't him. This guy, Mu Ze, was just a stand-in. The true male heartthrob was Yin Lu, who was casually heading to the TV station, unafraid of any crazy fans. The first meeting between the female and male leads was on the escalator. But life isn't always rosy. Because she was late, Wei Mi had the elevator door closed on her by the male heartthrob, despite her pleas. Due to submitting an application for a student exchange, the female lead changed her name to Zheng Han. Talk about an ironic twist of fate. During Yin Lu's recording, Wei Mi was forced to be an audience member. Because Wei Mi's shirt was missing a button, Yin Lu subtly pointed out, but Wei Mi again thought Yin Lu was a pervert, so she slapped him. Witnessing the male heartthrob being slapped on live television, several fanatical female fans dragged each other to find Zheng Han. Her frustration couldn't get any worse, and then they ran into each other again while she was working part-time. Due to her clumsiness, Wei Mi broke a gift Yin Lu had bought for his mother. The gift was too expensive, so Wei Mi proposed paying in monthly installments. Do you think the male heartthrob would agree? Definitely not. This girl still had a glimmer of hope. In a critical moment, when her mother was urging her to get a girlfriend, Wei Mi had proposed being the male heartthrob's fake girlfriend to deal with his mother. At the party, Wei Mi met Yin Lu's childhood friend. She was a young lady, whether beautiful or not. Her name was Yuan Qing. Here, everyone wanted to set up the male heartthrob to open the dance with his childhood friend, but the male heartthrob chose the fake girlfriend as his dance partner. Needless to say, you can imagine the expression on this childhood friend's face. It seems the male heartthrob was quite satisfied with his dance partner. After the performance, Yin Lu introduced his girlfriend to his real mother. Unexpectedly, this glib girl used her best friend's name, none other than her savior, Lu Yao. Yin Lu's mother was very pleased with Wei Mi's cleverness, so she reprimanded her son for taking so long to bring his girlfriend to meet her, a great joy for a mother on her birthday, and introduced her son's girlfriend to all the guests. Girls, when they see delicious food, can't control themselves. This girl was also like that, very appreciative. Hearing the rumbling from the male heartthrob's stomach, Wei Mi got him some food. It's truly hard to please a male heartthrob. Yin Lu immediately waved his hand, pushing Wei Mi away. And what had to happen, happened. When Yin Lu pulled Wei Mi's hand to keep her from falling, the two accidentally shared a kiss. Wei Mi shyly turned her face away. Yin Lu could only praise the gummy candy as delicious. While the two were awkward, Yuan Qing approached, handing Wei Mi a glass of champagne to calm her down, and said Wei Mi looked very familiar. Of course, Wei Mi immediately denied it. Seeing this, Yuan Qing turned to Yin Lu and said, "Don't bring a fake girlfriend home to deal with your mother just because she's rushing you." But with his cold and stubborn personality, the male lead replied, "Do you think you understand me and judge others?" Then he stepped forward, hugged the female lead, and prepared to go elsewhere. After moving to a different spot, they reverted to their true selves and began a verbal sparring match. Suddenly, a man in a pink suit appeared, placing his hand on Yin Lu's shoulder, his voice bending his own gender, which made Wei Mi's mind race, thinking he was Yin Lu's lover. When the man introduced himself as Mu Ze and prepared to shake hands with Wei Mi, Yin Lu stopped him and asked him to go elsewhere. After being doused with cold water, Yuan Qing went to Yin Lu's mother, saying that Wei Mi didn't love Yin Lu at all, and showed her the video of Wei Mi hitting Yin Lu on TV. But she was not only not angry, but also very happy, saying that this girl was very interesting and resembled her younger self, capable of managing Yin Lu. Yuan Qing was speechless and could only shyly leave. But to be sure of her son's feelings, she entrusted Yin Lu's cousin to follow them. When she found Wei Mi eating alone, the cousin plied Wei Mi with alcohol, intending to force her to tell the truth. Before long, both were drunk and started chatting. The cousin badmouthed her brother, and just then Yin Lu walked by and overheard. Seeing this, Wei Mi immediately said she was drunk. Afterward, the two took the cousin to a hotel to rest. Wei Mi almost fell due to a slip, but Yin Lu quickly reached out to hold her. For a moment, looking into Wei Mi's hazy eyes, Yin Lu was momentarily stunned. Wei Mi then moved forward, pointed at Yin Lu, and said only she knew both their secrets. Due to the alcohol, Wei Mi stumbled, pulled Yin Lu's tie, and fell onto the sofa. Just then, Yin Lu's mother walked in and caught sight of this, then pretended not to see anything and left. Wei Mi shakily stood up, apologized to Yin Lu, and then also left. On her way home, she sat on the bus in her expensive dress, thinking about the task she had gone through today, and didn't forget that Yin Lu had saved her contact information and made her pay. She went to her best friend and thanked her for helping take care of her younger sister, Zheng Han. And then the two chatted about Wei Mi's day and Wei Mi's future. Afterward, Wei Mi continued to impersonate Zheng Han and returned to the dorm room. But when she got back to the room, her sister's friend vented her anger on her because she had hit her idol that morning. The morning she went to the vice principal's social studies class, it was a coincidence that Yin Lu and Yuan Qing were also in the same class. At the beginning of the lesson, the teacher asked the class to divide into pairs. Since everyone wanted to be in a group with Yin Lu except Wei Mi, when the teacher called Yin Lu to choose a partner, after a few seconds of thought, he chose Wei Mi. It wasn't until the teacher called Wei Mi Zheng Han that Yin Lu discovered he had been tricked. After her fake name was exposed, Wei Mi tried to argue, which annoyed Yin Lu greatly. He even carefully took out a book to check Wei Mi's name. After a while of fumbling, not knowing what she was studying, when the teacher called Wei Mi to stand up and answer Yuan Qing's question, Wei Mi not only couldn't answer, but also didn't know what the question was. But with quick thinking, Wei Mi managed to trick Yin Lu into answering the question for her. Although very angry and having refused, with Wei Mi's persistence, he had to answer. Anyway, Wei Mi tried to apologize to Yin Lu, but accidentally caused a disturbance in class and was reminded by the teacher. While going to eat, Wei Mi met the guy named Jiu Yu who wanted to sit and eat with her that morning. He complained to Wei Mi why she was avoiding him. Wei Mi, flustered and not knowing what to do, denied it, saying she was late for class that morning, which was why. Jiu Yu immediately became happy again and invited Wei Mi to study at the library. Wei Mi forced a smile and just agreed to let it pass. And behind them, Mu Zhe and Siwon were gossiping about Lu Yao. After a while of talking, they suspected that Lu Yao didn't study at the main campus, but was the campus belle of the fashion design department at the branch campus. While Siwon was scolding Wei Mi for dating Yin Lu yesterday, and now running to the canteen to eat with a young guy, Yin Lu appeared and sat down to eat with him. Seeing this, Siwon went to Wei Mi and called her Lu Yao, which panicked Wei Mi greatly. At the same time, behind them, Yin Lu explained to Mu Zhe that they had been tricked. Wei Mi quickly pulled Siwon out of the canteen. Wei Mi explained to Siwon that Yin Lu wanted to protect her from the fanatical female students at school, which was why they used fake names and had a secret relationship. Unexpectedly, Siwon believed Wei Mi's words. Wei Mi then quickly praised Siwon for being smart and left. After knowing the whole truth, Mu Zhe also advised Yin Lu to resolve this matter quickly. Yin Lu just said he wouldn't let things get out of control. Seeing this, Siwon called and told him everything Wei Mi had said to her. While Wei Mi was walking around the lake, Yin Lu texted wanting to meet her. After that, the two met at Wei Mi's workplace. They agreed on 3 conditions for their arrangement. The next day, Wei Mi and Jiu Yu went to the library as planned. But because Wei Mi found Jiu Yu's work speed very slow, Wei Mi stood up to help Jiu Yu arrange books on the shelves. But this made Jiu Yu suspect her again, because he thought Zheng Han didn't like doing these things before. Wei Mi quickly explained and also wanted to apply to work at the library. While working, Wei Mi accidentally dropped a book. Jiu Yu saw this and came to check on her, but coincidentally, Yin Lu was also behind them, seeing everything, and said Wei Mi was very adaptable. Yin Lu then asked Wei Mi to take him to the borrowing area to check the book management situation, and what was bound to happen, happened. Yin Lu deliberately made things difficult for Wei Mi, asking her to do what he wanted. While tugging at the book, they fell into an awkward position. Suddenly, Wei Mi's friend Lu Yao called and told her to come to class for roll call. Wei Mi quickly rushed to class and sneaked in, but unexpectedly, she was discovered by the teacher and called up to explain the lesson. But luckily, this was Wei Mi's major, so she answered very well and was only given a reminder by the teacher. Upon returning home, Siwon had told Yin Lu's mother everything. She thought her mother would be angry, but no, she was very happy that her son met a girl who made him feel something. Plus, Siwon praised Zheng Han for being a good student and even winning the chance to compete with Yin Lu in the Challenge Cup competition. The mother was overjoyed. Siwon also told her to invite Zheng Han over for dinner to get to know her better. While playing games with his friend, he unexpectedly received a call from his mother. After hearing his mother say she would invite Zheng Han over for dinner next week, he felt completely stunned and helpless. The next day, Yin Lu again caught Wei Mi making an advertisement and immediately approached to inform her about coming home to eat. Wei Mi continuously refused until she accidentally slapped Yin Lu's hand, unintentionally tearing Yin Lu's shirt in the most suggestive spot. After accidentally tearing Yin Lu's shirt, Wei Mi took him to a clothing store in the market. Wei Mi simply said that Yin Lu's good looks were maintained by designer brands. To prove Wei Mi wrong, Yin Lu immediately changed into the shirt she chose for him. It's true that if you're handsome, anything looks good. Wei Mi looked over and realized this was also a business opportunity. Wei Mi quickly asked the store owner to let her be a shopping guide. And not only that, Wei Mi even dragged Yin Lu into working with her. Wei Mi worked very actively, while Yin Lu felt annoyed and bothered. Seeing that not many customers were coming in, Wei Mi turned on some music, dancing, and calling out to everyone to come and buy things. This method seemed very effective and attracted many buyers. Wei Mi turned to ask Yin Lu for help and promised to go to his mother's house for dinner. At first, Yin Lu was quite shy, but after a short while, the two got into sync and worked together very well, so both attracted many buyers. Suddenly, Wei Mi accidentally slipped and almost fell, but Yin Lu quickly caught her and pulled her towards him. Both looked into each other's eyes awkwardly. Afterward, many shirts were sold, and customers praised them as a beautiful couple. Meanwhile, Jiuyu was sitting alone, calculating quite meticulously. He calculated that the probability of his relationship with Zheng Han breaking up increased by 10%. Truly, a diligent student can calculate anything. After finishing work, Wei Mi and Yin Lu strolled around to buy food. When they reached a stinky tofu stall, Yin Lu immediately couldn't stand it and kept his distance. Nevertheless, he still helped Wei Mi pay because her device ran out of battery, which also made the stall owner think the two were a couple. Wei Mi shyly refused, and then the two left. It seemed Yin Lu was accustomed to the life of a rich young master, so some aspects of ordinary life were quite new to him. He even commented that Wei Mi seemed happy eating stinky tofu. Wei Mi then explained. Yin Lu also teased her about her many different looks, which, of course, was because Wei Mi always liked new things. Afterward, Wei Mi saw a photo booth and called Yin Lu to take pictures together, and they had a pretty fun time. Wei Mi gave him the photo. Although he showed a displeased expression, he still put the photo in his pocket and also said he would take her home since it was late, but Wei Mi refused and took the bus home. At a red light, Yin Lu also stopped on the side, and seeing Wei Mi's happy expression also made him smile. Could it be that he had a slight crush on this girl? On her way back to the dorm, Jiuyu called Wei Mi Zheng Han, which startled her and made her drop the photo. When Jiuyu saw these photos, his expression was quite sad and disheartened. Wei Mi also noticed, so she said goodbye and went into the dorm. At home, Yin Lu recalled the time with Wei Mi at the night market and looked at the photo again, then smiled. It was the same for Wei Mi. While hanging the shirt she wore that night, Wei Mi herself found Yin Lu quite adorable when they were at the night market together. As for Jiuyu, while he was very dejected, his friend appeared, asked about him, and offered some advice, which also made Jiuyu feel better. The next morning, Jiuyu waited for Zheng Han in front of the dorm with a gift box in his hand. Looking at Jiuyu's shy actions, it was clear this was his first time. Wei Mi then accepted the gift and thanked Jiuyu, and at the same time, she texted Lu Yao to come see the new design. On her way, Lu Yao met Mu Zhe, who tried to flirt with Lu Yao, but unexpectedly, Lu Yao ignored him. After all of that, Mu Zhe still didn't seem to want to give up. Just then, Wei Mi appeared and advised Mu Zhe to stay away from Lu Yao. Afterward, the two left for another spot and sat down to look at Wei Mi's design. Lu Yao was quite satisfied with Wei Mi's couple shirt design and also noticed that Wei Mi was sleepy and had dark circles under her eyes, so she asked about it. After learning that Wei Mi had been with Yin Lu all along, Lu Yao reminded Wei Mi to be careful because Yin Lu had many crazy fans. Wei Mi also advised Lu Yao to stay away from Mu Zhe to protect her identity. While on her way to class, Wei Mi was stopped by Yin Lu, who told her the rules for eating with his mother. Wei Mi begged Yin Lu to negotiate further, but Yin Lu was not easily swayed. He used their agreement to threaten her. This time Wei Mi was quite firm and refused to do it. Yin Lu was about to say more when the bell rang. Jiuyu had saved Wei Mi for once. After class, Mu Zhe used gifts and flattery to ask Wei Mi for Lu Yao's phone number, which was, of course, flatly refused. Jiuyu also appeared at that moment and offered breakfast to Wei Mi, but Mu Zhe snatched it and ate it, then the two argued. Seeing this, Wei Mi subtly slipped away. The next day, while not knowing what to do, he lost patience and sent a warning message to Wei Mi to lure her over. Seeing this, Wei Mi angrily went to Yin Lu's house. But when she arrived, Yin Lu threatened to complain about her job, and Wei Mi quickly changed her tune, begging Yin Lu and having no choice but to agree to have dinner with Yin Lu's mother. Yin Lu happily presented the contract between the two of them, although it contained some rules Wei Mi was not happy with. When she learned that her debt would be cleared after completing the contract, Wei Mi smiled and agreed. Afterward, Wei Mi went to see Lu Yao, who was exercising. She both criticized and praised Yin Lu to Lu Yao for about half an hour, making Lu Yao suspect that she liked Yin Lu. Suddenly, Wei Mi received a call from C1 telling her to go meet Yin Lu's mother. Wei Mi was sad because she had just signed a contract and already had to work. Afterward, Wei Mi quickly left and called Yin Lu, but Yin Lu didn't answer. Seeing this, Wei Mi left him a message and then went to meet C1. She arrived, but didn't see Yin Lu's mother. C1 explained that she would be late due to traffic. Then she asked about Wei Mi's and Yin Lu's relationship. When he woke up, Yin Lu saw the message Wei Mi had left and sprang up in a panic. While they were talking, a reckless driver almost crashed into C1, but fortunately, Wei Mi pulled C1 away, so she wasn't injured. But unfortunately, the two accidentally bumped into the artist behind them and damaged his painting. Hearing this, Wei Mi immediately asked the uncle to let her fix the painting. Meanwhile, Yinlu also rushed to find Wei Mi. The uncle seemed quite satisfied with Wei Mi's drawing. Afterward, the three met. Siwon, wanting to create private space for the two, left and said she was going to pick up her mother. She also wished Wei Mi and Yinlu to be happy together, then pushed Wei Mi into Yinlu. But unexpectedly, Wei Mi's hands were still stained with paint, so she accidentally stained Yinlu's shirt. It's true that Wei Mi has a special connection with Yinlu's shirts. To fix the mistake, Wei Mi used her artistic talent to turn the stain into a heart shape. Both were once again lost in each other's eyes, and their heartbeats raced. Afterward, all four met at a restaurant for a meal. Not surprisingly, the mother was very fond of Wei Mi, telling her two children to personally cook if Wei Mi came next time. To prevent things from going too far, Wei Mi explained that due to her studies, romantic relationships would have to wait. Returning to the dorm, Wei Mi again encountered Jiu-Yu, who was preparing to confess his feelings. But Wei Mi quickly cut him off, gave a vague excuse, and went inside. At this point, Jiu-Yu's suspicions grew. He began to recall Wei Mi's anomalies. Yinlu sat at home, recalling Wei Mi's actions and smiling when Mu Ze appeared. Mu Ze then teased Yinlu, which annoyed him greatly, so he threw a banana peel at Mu Ze. Mu Ze accidentally spilled water and was about to use the shirt Wei Mi bought for Yinlu to wipe it up, but Yinlu snatched it back. The next morning, while studying, seeing Wei Mi looking bored, Yinlu asked her how she was by writing on a piece of paper and tossing it to Wei Mi. The two kept verbally sparring until Jiu-Yu's message suddenly arrived, inviting Wei Mi to his birthday party. Wei Mi, flustered and not knowing what to do, agreed nonchalantly. After class, Yinlu found Wei Mi and asked her to come for dinner with his mother tomorrow, but Wei Mi refused and left. Just then, Yuan Qing arrived and invited Yinlu to participate in a promotional event, but he coldly refused. The very next day, as arranged, Jiu-Yu took Wei Mi to the amusement park for his birthday. To avoid playing on the Ferris wheel, while Jiu-Yu was buying drinks, Wei Mi used her phone to call Lu Yao. But on the other end, Lu Yao was being pestered by Mu Ze, who was demanding to confess his feelings. Since Lu Yao didn't answer, Wei Mi switched to calling Yinlu. At first, Yinlu was wearing headphones and jogging, so he didn't notice, but fortunately, Yinlu finished his workout at that moment and called her back. Just as she was about to ask for help, Jiu-Yu had bought drinks and approached her. Afterward, she quickly pretended to talk to the student council president. To make it more convincing, Yinlu also pretended to be the president and spoke to Jiu-Yu. Seeing this, Jiu-Yu could only invite her to drink and go home. But when handing her the drink, he accidentally spilled water, so he quickly grabbed a towel to wipe her. However, he noticed something unusual and concluded that Wei Mi was not Zheng Han, because Zheng Han always knew Jiu-Yu's birthday was not today, combined with the anomalies he had compiled before, and most importantly, Zheng Han had a moon-shaped birthmark on her leg. Seeing that she could no longer hide it, Wei Mi took Jiu-Yu to meet Zheng Han. After arriving at Zheng Han's place and seeing her lying in the hospital bed, Jiu-Yu's eyes welled up as he called her name. Wei Mi recounted Zheng Han's accident to Jiu-Yu and explained why Wei Mi had impersonated Zheng Han. Afterward, Jiu-Yu cried while speaking his thoughts, even though she was still in a coma. The next day, Mu Ze waited in front of Lu Yao's door to continue flirting with her, but Lu Yao always refused him. While Jiu-Yu was wiping Zheng Han's hands, the nurse came in to announce a new medicine that would be very beneficial for Zheng Han, but also meant the price would be very high, specifically 3 times the current cost. This also gave Wei Mi a headache. While sitting in the car with Mu Ze, Yinlu tried to contact Wei Mi, and just then, Yinlu saw Wei Mi walking with Jiu-Yu. At first, Yinlu appeared very calm, until he saw the two holding hands, and his blood boiled as he sped away. That evening, he refused to answer Wei Mi's calls. Although she verbally called Yinlu detestable during the outdoor class, Wei Mi still secretly approached him to thank and apologize to Yinlu. During group work, the two were engaged in a cold war, but while pollinating flowers, a bee flew by and made Yinlu step back and bump into Wei Mi reflexively. Yinlu pulled Wei Mi back, and then the two officially lost their first kiss. Wei Mi, embarrassed, ran away. Afterward, the story of Yinlu and Wei Mi losing their first kiss was the talk of the entire school. To calm down, Wei Mi went to the basketball court with Jiu-Yu. Upon hearing the news, Yinlu also went to the basketball court, and afterward, he played basketball with the school's club. The game seemed quite intense with female friends cheering passionately. Meanwhile, Siwon dragged Wei Mi over to talk. Feeling that Siwon was making things difficult for her, Wei Mi told her the whole truth about her and Yinlu. Afterward, her sister also criticized Yinlu about this. At this moment, Yinlu was very flustered and only told Siwon not to tell his mother. He returned to the game, but because he kept thinking about Wei Mi revealing the truth, he became disheartened and left the game midway. Before leaving, Yinlu also left a shot that resonated with everyone. While working in the library, Wei Mi accidentally dropped a book. When the book was about to hit her face, Yin Lu arrived in time and caught the book just in time, but unfortunately, another book fell on Wei Mi's head. To avoid embarrassment, Yin Lu lowered his voice and asked Wei Mi to follow him. Yin Lu and Wei Mi continued to argue about their agreement, but seeing Yin Lu becoming increasingly unreasonable, Wei Mi left, feeling disrespected. Yin Lu then grabbed Wei Mi and warned her. Just then, Yuan Qing arrived and gave Wei Mi a rather malicious look. Wei Mi was stunned and didn't care. Afterward, she continued to fret over her work. For the next few days, Yin Lu always paid attention to Wei Mi and made gestures to get closer to Wei Mi. One day, both Yin Lu and Mu Zhe went to see Lu Yao. Yin Lu's main purpose was to ask Lu Yao about Wei Mi's situation. After learning that Wei Mi was having financial difficulties, Yin Lu met Wei Mi after class, offering her a contract to be his housekeeper with a huge salary, so Wei Mi agreed to the contract. That evening, Wei Mi went to Yin Lu's house and started working. Wei Mi had always worked actively to create a good impression on Yin Lu, but unfortunately, it was her first time working in a rich household, which made her quite unfamiliar. While showering, the water heater broke, so she screamed. Yin Lu heard this and came to help, but she chased him out. Afterward, Yin Lu received a call from Mu Zhe. Mu Zhe taught him some ways to make girls fall for him. Yin Lu followed his advice and went downstairs to jog, but after waiting for a long time and not seeing Wei Mi come down, he stopped, took off his shirt, and wiped his sweat. At this moment, Wei Mi came out and saw everything. Later, Yin Lu tried to stop the smart machine from turning off the lights, but it was too late, and he ended up pinning Wei Mi on the sofa. In his confusion, Yin Lu grabbed Wei Mi's pepper spray and accidentally sprayed himself in the face. Afterward, the two went into the bathroom to wash their faces. Wei Mi then quickly apologized and hoped for forgiveness. The next morning, Wei Mi prepared a very beautiful breakfast for Yin Lu. During breakfast, Wei Mi prepared Yin Lu sportswear and then went to school. While reading a fashion book, she again met Yin Lu. Coincidentally, Yuan Qing also came to invite Yin Lu to participate in a debate activity, but she was again refused, and Yin Lu pulled Wei Mi away in front of her, making her furious with Wei Mi. That afternoon, after a tennis match with Mu Zhe, Mu Lu took out a towel to wipe his sweat and realized it wasn't his towel, so he went to Wei Mi to question her. Mu Zhe also met Lu Yao while swimming. To flirt with Lu Yao, Mu Zhe pretended to be drowning so Lu Yao would save him. After getting on shore, Lu Yao gave him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and so Mu Zhe also lost his first kiss. While cooking, Yin Lu asked Wei Mi to go pick up the delivery. When she opened it, Yin Lu was stunned to find it was all plush toys from his fans. The next morning while eating breakfast, hearing Wei Mi arrange to meet Jiu Yu at the park, Yin Lu deliberately created work for Wei Mi to prevent her from meeting Jiu Yu as retaliation. While Yin Lu was showering, she turned off the water heater and then snuck away. In the morning, while Wei Mi was caring for Zheng Han, Jiu Yu came in with a book to read to Zheng Han. Afterward, the two sat down and chatted. Wei Mi didn't return to Yin Lu's house until evening. Seeing this, Yin Lu ran into his room and pretended to have a fever. When Wei Mi came in, he showed her a thermometer that had been soaked in hot water. Unexpectedly, Wei Mi believed him and then stewed soup for Yin Lu. While eating, Yin Lu suddenly had a nosebleed, and Wei Mi frantically took ice to compress him. The next morning, Yin Lu woke up and smelled the delicious duck soup. He ate with great appetite. But afterward, Wei Mi handed Yin Lu an account, asking him to transfer the overtime pay from last night. Yin Lu helplessly transferred the money, and then Wei Mi went to make deliveries. Before delivery, she forgot her helmet at home, and Yin Lu offered to use his supercar to drive her for deliveries, but Wei Mi refused him. Throughout the delivery route, Yin Lu always followed Wei Mi. To shake off Yin Lu, she rode into paths where cars couldn't go, but unfortunately, she encountered the police, so her bike was impounded. Luckily, Yin Lu found her. Afterward, Wei Mi had no choice but to get into Yin Lu's car to make deliveries. While driving, Yin Lu almost hit an old man crossing the road. Due to sudden braking, the milk tea in Wei Mi's hand spilled completely. The two went to the customer's house to apologize, but the customer was still not satisfied. Seeing this, Yin Lu wanted to personally make milk tea for the customer to make amends. The customer, after drinking it, was very satisfied and forgave them. But in the end, she was still reported for Yin Lu saying that her milk tea contained chemicals. Feeling guilty, Yin Lu invited her to lunch. At home, Yin Lu changed into the shirt Wei Mi bought for him and went to meet Mu Zhe at the cake shop. Seeing Mu Zhe buying a cake for Lu Yao, he also wanted to buy a cake for Wei Mi outside the shop. He was caught by fans wearing a market-bought shirt, with Wei Mi also present. At home, he put the cake in the refrigerator and asked Wei Mi to get a cold drink so she would see the cake he bought. But just as she was about to get it, the boss called Wei Mi to work with double pay. Hearing about the money, Wei Mi's eyes lit up and she went to the boss, ignoring Yin Lu's request for her to get him water. At this moment, Mu Ze also brought the cake to Lu Yao. Lu Yao refused to accept it, then turned around and Lu Yao's shoulder bumped into the cake box. Mu Ze tried to hold onto the cake box when suddenly the two accidentally hugged each other. In the evening, Wei Mi returned home. She opened the refrigerator and saw the cake, and then the two sat and ate cake and ice cream. Since the Challenge Cup competition was next week, Yin Lu proactively placed documents in front of Wei Mi for her to study. The next day at school, Wei Mi saw students wearing shirts similar to the t-shirt she gave Yin Lu. Afterward, she went to the library to study with Jiu Yu. Coincidentally, Yin Lu also came here to return books and saw the two of them. Not knowing if it was jealousy or something else, Yin Lu interrupted the two and told Wei Mi to meet him outside. Yin Lu demanded that she come home on time to study for the competition with double pay. Afterward, Yin Lu tried to help Wei Mi study. She studied so much that she dozed off. Yin Lu picked her up, carried her to bed, and covered her with a blanket. At this moment, he smiled happily again. In the morning, Wei Mi woke up and saw Yin Lu working in the living room. She asked Yin Lu to stand up and measure his body so she could design some t-shirts for Yin Lu, because Yin Lu had helped her study. Afterward, their eyes met. Just as their lips were about to touch, the alarm bell rang, making them snap back to reality. Wei Mi went to Lu Yao to design t-shirts for Yin Lu and also discuss the Challenge Cup competition. On her way to make deliveries, she was always worried about the competition, so she almost hit an old lady and fell onto the street with an injury to her hand. Fortunately, it was only a superficial injury, so she went to the hospital for bandaging, and Jiu Yu was also there. At this moment, she came up with an idea to avoid the competition. Wei Mi pretended to be worried that the injury would leave sequelae, asking the doctor to put a cast on her arm, but the nurse disagreed. Seeing that it wouldn't work, she asked Jiu Yu to wrap it as if it were truly broken. Since it was late and Wei Mi hadn't returned, Yin Lu was quite anxious, but then a message from Lu Yao arrived. Lu Yao said she was sick and asked Wei Mi to come take care of her. The next morning, Wei Mi came to class with her injured hand, asking the teacher if she could not participate in the cup competition. At first, the teacher was understanding, but Yuan Qing didn't accept it and went to talk to the teacher. Yin Lu, standing behind, saw this and volunteered to compete in Wei Mi's place. That evening, Wei Mi prepared a t-shirt for Yin Lu to thank him. Not only that, Wei Mi also prepared coffee and did laundry for Yin Lu. But before she could finish, Yin Lu came out, and Wei Mi quickly threaded her hand through the strap to avoid revealing it. Afterward, Yin Lu helped her hang the laundry and told her to go to her bedroom. The next morning, Yin Lu had prepared breakfast for her, which made her think Yin Lu had changed into a warm guy. Afterward, she went to the library to bring Yin Lu lunch. At this point, their relationship seemed to be getting better and better. That evening, she cooked soup for Yin Lu and also gave him a cute gift to wish him good luck for the competition tomorrow. The competition had arrived. All the Xia Luo students stood in front of the big screen to cheer for Yin Lu, while Wei Mi went to another spot to watch Yin Lu compete alone. Wei Mi chuckled when Yin Lu wore the t-shirt she gave him. The competition was quite intense, but with his intelligence, Yin Lu overcame all opponents and won the competition. Wei Mi was also very happy and praised Yin Lu to her sister Zheng Han as being incredibly talented. That evening, she was invited by Yuan Qing's group to go for a celebratory drink for Yin Lu's victory, but this was just an opportunity for Yuan Qing to warn Wei Mi. But afterward, Yin Lu arrived and rescued Wei Mi. He even carried Wei Mi right in front of Yuan Qing. Back home, he put her in bed, meticulously cared for her, and then Yin Lu left the room. Wei Mi woke up and found a photo of her and Yin Lu that he still kept with him. Yin Lu also thoughtfully washed her face towel and then kissed her forehead. After Yin Lu kissed her forehead, Wei Mi was incredibly surprised and thought she was hallucinating. Waking up in the morning, she saw Yin Lu making breakfast, truly handsome and knowing how to cook. What could be more irresistible? He gently offered her breakfast. While eating, both thought about what happened last night. Yin Lu went to school and noticed that all the female students were wearing shirts similar to his, which made him quite bewildered. Wei Mi went to Lu Yao to help prepare orders. When Lu Yao asked about Yin Lu, Wei Mi looked flustered and only gave a perfunctory explanation. Yin Lu sat alone, reading comments about himself, and Wei Mi seeing too many negative comments, he created a new account and commented, criticizing those who said he and Yuan Qing were a couple. Then followed a verbal battle between him and his fans. While sitting in his room, a bee flew in. He thought he was strong, but in the end, he had to call Wei Mi to deal with the bee. After catching the bee, she teased Yin Lu. Taking advantage of her distraction, he quickly snatched the stick from her hand and threw it away. Afterward, he pinned her against the bookshelf and threatened her. Wei Mi shyly left the room. Wei Mi then called Lu Yao, talking about how many people were wearing shirts similar to the one she gave Yin Lu, and she was worried Yin Lu would investigate and discover her true identity. To resolve this, Lu Yao told Wei Mi to blame everything on her so Wei Mi wouldn't be investigated. Lu Yao scheduled a meeting with the 3 biggest shirt customers. Coincidentally, Mu Ze heard the news and came to the meeting thinking that buying all the shirts would make Lu Yao notice him. But the truth was cruel. Lu Yao only said a few words to him and then left. Her friend, Feng Mei, caught and photographed Wei Mi at Yin Lu's house. Then later at school told Wei Mi to go back to the dorm after class. Wei Mi looked very dejected. Upon returning to the dorm, she was immediately criticized by Mimi, who showed her the photo of her at Yin Lu's house. Not wanting it to be exposed, Wei Mi wrestled with Mimi and accidentally knocked a potted plant down to the first floor. Afterward, both were called downstairs by the teacher and criticized. Wei Mi almost lost her student exchange slot. Wei Mi then went to the hospital with Zheng Han and confessed her mistakes. That evening, Wei Mi cooked while thinking about Yin Lu. Outwardly, he seemed cold, but he always reached out to help when she had no one. This made her very happy. Just then, Yin Lu also returned and had dinner. Hearing Yin Lu's criticisms of the food, Wei Mi teared up and poured out all her grievances. Afterward, she requested to cancel their agreement. Upon hearing Wei Mi say she wanted to cancel the agreement, Yin Lu became sad. He silently watched Wei Mi gradually walk away from his house and reflected on her words. Afterward, he ignored the rain and went to find Wei Mi, while Wei Mi sat in the rain, looking at the photo again and crying. How many moments they had passed by each other, yet were unaware. Back at the dorm, Wei Mi lay tired on the bed. The next morning, she met Jiu Yu and advised him to keep his distance from her to avoid getting into trouble. On this side, Yin Lu was also dejected. He looked at the account code Wei Mi had created, then transferred the overtime pay to her. Afterward, Mu Ze and he met at school, learning that everyone had discovered Wei Mi had been to his house. Just as he was about to go look for Wei Mi, Mu Ze pulled him back and proposed a solution to prevent everyone from pointing fingers at Wei Mi by letting everyone know Wei Mi was his girlfriend. After finishing distributing flyers, she was happy, thinking she would be rewarded, but the boss refused because he thought she and others had colluded to sell quickly, thus not serving the purpose of promotion. Wei Mi was bewildered, not understanding who had done this. She turned and saw Yin Lu distributing those flyers, then understood. Seeing Wei Mi turn her back, Yin Lu rushed to pull her back many times, but she always wanted to leave. Helpless, he picked her up and carried her into the car. He took her to the spot he had prepared beforehand to confess his feelings to her. But midway through his confession, the doctor called and reported that Zheng Han's condition had improved, telling her to come to the hospital. Overjoyed, she turned and left, leaving Yin Lu alone. But when she saw what he had prepared for her, she was moved and also confessed that she liked Yin Lu very much. Afterward, she ran to the hospital to check on Zheng Han's condition. The next day, the mechanical engineering and finance departments had a dodgeball match. In the end, the finance department won, and unexpectedly, Wei Mi was the one who ended the match, but unfortunately, she got injured. She thought everyone would acknowledge her, but Yuan's group still pointed fingers at her, which she couldn't tolerate. Yin Lu came to defend her, then took her to the infirmary. Afterward, Yin Lu gave her a passionate kiss. While kissing, Yin Lu asked Wei Mi about the answer from last night that she had left before giving. Before she could answer, the doctor came in to check on her. Afterward, Yin Lu carried Wei Mi to the lakeside to sit, and finally, Wei Mi said, "I like you." But she didn't want to be with Yin Lu because she believed that she and he were from different worlds. One always shining, one just an invisible girl to everyone. And the biggest reason was that she didn't want to do anything inappropriate under Zheng Han's identity. Hearing such words, Yin Lu sadly left. Lu Yao also came afterward and asked about Wei Mi. On this side, Mu Ze also talked to Yin Lu and then received a call from Lu Yao. Afterward, the two met and discussed how to resolve the issue between Yin Lu and Wei Mi. The next day, Yin Lu had a live stream teaching session, so the teacher sent a volunteer to redraw the culture wall in place of Yin Lu, but no one volunteered. Immediately after, Wei Mi stood up and volunteered, to everyone's surprise. That evening, Wei Mi dedicated herself to redrawing the wall, but unfortunately, it rained. While fumbling, she bumped into a bucket of water and fell. Luckily, Yin Lu arrived in time, so nothing major happened. Waking up, she saw herself lying in bed with Jiu Yu sitting beside her. From Jiu Yu, she learned that Yin Lu had brought her here and had rushed back to deal with the wall. The next morning, she hurried to school, worried that the painting would be ruined and embarrass Zheng Han. When she went to see it, she was surprised. The painting had been beautifully restored. Afterward, everyone praised her, and as she admired the painting, she remembered her moments with Yin Lu. Then, she wanted to thank Yin Lu, but Yin Lu coldly left. The next day, Mu Ze took Yin Lu to the spot where he would confess his feelings to Lu Yao and asked Yin Lu to support him. Lu Yao and Wei Mi also came here, but when they reached him, Lu Yao tricked him and locked him in the house he had prepared. Afterward, Lu Yao happily returned to Wei Mi and accused Mu Ze of wanting to cause trouble. Lu Yao saw Yin Lu passing by and distracted Wei Mi, leading her elsewhere. Then she hid near Yin Lu and pretended to have lost Wei Mi, asking Yin Lu to go look for her while she went to Musée. Afterward, the two used binoculars to observe the pair. Yin Lu finally found Wei Mi and continued to confess his feelings. A bee suddenly flew by, and she grabbed the bouquet of flowers to chase it away. Yin Lu chuckled and concluded that Wei Mi was his girlfriend. Afterward, the two shared a very romantic kiss. On Musé's side, things also progressed very well. Musée pulled Lu Yao into the house and confessed his feelings. Even better, Yi Zhenghan had woken up. That evening, Wei Mi and Yin Lu rode horses together and shared a passionate kiss. Afterward, Yin Lu said, "Wei Mi is not Zhenghan." Wei Mi woke up in a panic. Luckily, it was just a dream. At this moment, she also met Yin Lu, and he showed very affectionate gestures. At the same time, Musée waited for Lu Yao with a bouquet of flowers in his hand and asked her why she didn't like him, but Lu Yao's subsequent words to him hurt him a little. That evening, Yin Lu returned home and chuckled when he saw Wei Mi's meticulous preparations. Afterward, Wei Mi created a very romantic atmosphere and was about to reveal her secret when Yin Lu's mother arrived, interrupting and asking about their engagement. Due to this unexpected situation, Wei Mi shyly left. Yin Lu then returned to his room to ponder Wei Mi's secret. After class, Yin Lu asked Zhenghan about the secret. She was flustered, not knowing what to do. Jiu Yu also arrived afterward and invited Zhenghan to the library. A moment later, Yin Lu also came to the library and saw Zhenghan. Afterward, he received a call from Wei Mi. He was suspicious, so he listened to the phone while walking towards Zhenghan, only to find that Zhenghan was not holding the phone to talk to him at all. He seemed to understand the problem and then arranged to meet Wei Mi at home that evening. After leaving the library, Yin Lu told Zhenghan to follow him home. Afterward, he waited until Wei Mi arrived, then called Zhenghan out. Wei Mi was speechless in a panic at this moment. Then he questioned Wei Mi about all the truth. Yin Lu was very angry, scolding Wei Mi for not trusting him and hiding things from him all this time. Wei Mi then left, to Yin Lu's astonishment, leaving him alone with considerable hurt. Unexpectedly, Wei Mi returned with medicine in her hand and bandaged Yin Lu. While bandaging him, she tried to comfort Yin Lu. "Although my identity is fake, my heart for you is real." Yin Lu probably received some comfort and couldn't bear to say goodbye to Wei Mi afterward. She gave him the shirt she had designed herself as an apology. Although he didn't show it outwardly, Yin Lu still accepted the gift from Wei Mi. The next day, Wei Mi made cookies for Yin Lu, and this time they were successful. Afterward, Wei Mi tried to use her actions to earn Yin Lu's forgiveness. Finally, Yin Lu's heart melted and he accepted Yi Wei Mi as his girlfriend. So from now on, they could love each other without any worries. Musée was also with Lu Yao at this time and used a water gun to play with Lu Yao. Afterward, the two teased each other very happily. At the same location, a tall, handsome man named Si Chun, a genius artist, was trying to refuse an invitation to be a judge for a fashion design competition. But he couldn't refuse forever, so he took the opportunity to escape downstairs, where Yin Lu and Wei Mi were sitting and drinking coffee. Wei Mi, at this moment, went into the restroom, tripped, and bumped into Si Chun. Yin Lu saw this and asked Si Chun to apologize to Wei Mi. But when they saw each other, they recognized each other. After asking Wei Mi, Yin Lu learned that Si Chun was Wei Mi's childhood friend. At home, the manager still tried to persuade Si Chun to be a judge for the competition, but he remained firm in his refusal. It wasn't until the manager gave up that Si Chun agreed, because he saw a familiar image in the documents. The next day, Si Chun and Wei Mi met and went to eat together, chatting about their childhood memories, unexpectedly caught by Musée, who took photos and showed them to Yin Lu. Yin Lu ignored what Musée said about Si Chun, but afterward, he invited Wei Mi to the night market. He asked her about what she did today, but when he heard her praise Si Chun so much, he coldly left. Upon returning home, he again asked Wei Mi about his advantages. The two talked and exchanged affectionate gestures. The next day, Zhenghan held a birthday party for Jiu Yu. Taking this opportunity, he confessed his feelings to the girl he secretly admired. Zhenghan couldn't hide her emotions either and agreed, making it a happy and joyful moment for the two of them. At this moment, Yin Lu was not idle. He personally made a bracelet as a gift for Wei Mi. Not only that, but he also decorated the room romantically to surprise Wei Mi. However, unexpectedly, Yuan Qing got drunk, and fearing she would cause trouble, he went to her and offered many ways to help her, but Yuan Qing shamelessly refused. She wanted to go to Yin Lu's house to change clothes, then promised to leave immediately. Although he didn't want to, out of respect for their long-standing friendship, he decided to help her one last time. At home, Yin Lu tried to contact Wei Mi, but she was busy working and didn't notice. Yuan Qing went into his room to look at Yin Lu's belongings and saw photos of Yin Lu and Wei Mi. Afterward, she changed into the shirt Wei Mi had given him and came out. Yin Lu saw this and told her to change into another shirt, but she cried uncontrollably, hugging Yin Lu tightly. Even though he tried to break free, Yuan Qing stubbornly wouldn't let go. Just then, Wei Mi returned home and witnessed everything. Seeing her boyfriend hugging another girl, and they were even wearing the shirt she gave him, Wei Mi left in anger and resentment very quickly. Yin Lu saw this and chased after her, but was held back by Yuan Qing. He angrily warned her to take off the shirt and ran off to find Wei Mi. Yuan Qing cried loudly in frustration. Just as he was about to catch up, Wei Mi got into a taxi and sped away. In the car, she cried continuously. Yin Lu was once a cold person, but now he was also helpless like this. Wei Mi at this moment comforted herself and only blamed Yin Lu. The next morning, seeing Wei Mi's swollen eyes, Lu Yao asked about her. Although Wei Mi said she was fine, as a longtime friend like Lu Yao, she was sure Wei Mi had a problem. Afterward, she went to meet Si Chun. At first, the two talked normally, but later, seeing the sadness on Wei Mi's face, Si Chun took Wei Mi to an entertainment area. Yin Lu was at home, dazed, waiting for Wei Mi to reply to his message, but it was useless. Mu Zhe also came to check on the situation, but was surprised to learn what happened. Afterward, Yin Lu waited near a bush to give Wei Mi the gift he had made himself. But when he saw Wei Mi happily talking with Si Chun, he came out and wanted to talk to Wei Mi. But how could she be in the mood to talk to him after what he had done to her? Even Si Chun also acted to prevent Yin Lu from contacting Wei Mi. To relieve his frustration, he went to play ball with Mu Zhe and then went to his mother's house. Wei Mi prepared to visit her grandmother with Si Chun, but Yin Lu was already waiting for her outside the door and wanted to talk. But at this moment, Si Chun also arrived and helped Wei Mi into the car. Yin Lu remembered Mu Zhe's words. "Are you really okay with such strong rivals surrounding your little girlfriend?" Afterward, Yin Lu also got into his car and followed Wei Mi. Upon arriving at her grandmother's house, the two happily hugged her, while Yin Lu, walking in from outside, also greeted her grandmother and introduced himself as Wei Mi's boyfriend. The next morning, Si Chun and Wei Mi went to the riverside to paint. Wei Mi was very happy with the atmosphere around there, while Yin Lu sadly observed the two from a distance. Wei Mi saw Yin Lu hiding behind a tree and walked towards him, but Si Chun called Wei Mi and looked at her affectionately. Seeing this, Yin Lu had no choice but to leave. Wei Mi and Si Chun went back home for dinner, but unexpectedly learned that Yin Lu hadn't returned, so Wei Mi told everyone to eat first and went to look for Yin Lu alone. Although it was raining, Wei Mi still tried to find Yin Lu. It was already pitch black, and Wei Mi was still trying to find Yin Lu. Coincidentally, she found Yin Lu's gift, and just then, Yin Lu was looking for that very gift right behind her. She watched Yin Lu fumbling around, looking for something, and she chuckled, then handed Yin Lu the gift he had made. Yin Lu saw her, smiled, and apologized to Wei Mi. In reality, Wei Mi had always trusted him, but she was angry with him for giving Yuan Qing an opportunity to intrude on their space, and even letting Yuan Qing wear the t-shirt she had given him. Afterward, the two made up. Yin Lu put the bracelet on Wei Mi, then gave her sweet words and a warm hug. From a distance, Si Chun also went looking for Wei Mi and, seeing this, sadly left quietly. The next morning, the three said goodbye to their grandmother and left. Seeing Yin Lu and Wei Mi holding hands, Si Chun quickly walked ahead. On the way, the two guys kept teasing each other. The competition began, and all contestants tried to complete their works. Lu Yao also actively supported Wei Mi until the results were announced, and Wei Mi was the champion of the competition. Then a contestant stood up to complain, claiming that Si Chun and Wei Mi had a dubious relationship and that the results were unfair. No matter how Si Chun explained, she was not convinced. She even brought up Si Chun putting his hand on Wei Mi's head before the competition. The audience below continuously discussed. It wasn't until Yin Lu stood up to speak that he made a decision to hold another round of competition, and if Wei Mi's work was all show and no substance, her championship title would be revoked. Si Chun then voluntarily stepped down as a judge to increase the fairness of the competition, and Wei Mi, of course, also agreed to compete in another round. The next round began with a different theme. Wei Mi initially found this round challenging, but when she looked at the bracelet Yin Lu gave her, she remembered his words and Si Chun's, and then an idea sparked. She sketched it on paper and then completed her work in a short time. She shared her perspective on her artwork with the theme, so close, yet so far, convincing both the judges and the entire audience. She then won the championship amidst the admiration of the entire audience. Afterward, Si Chun proactively invited her to celebrate, but Yin Lu disagreed. To resolve the conflict, Wei Mi asked all three to go eat together. The three then went to dinner. Wei Mi, because Yin Lu and Si Chun were bickering, decided to trick them into going to a specific restaurant. Upon arriving at the restaurant, Wei Mi went to the restroom, leaving Yin Lu and Si Chun. Yin Lu raised his hand to do something, then competed for a seat inside with Si-chun. When Wei Mi came out, Si-chun pulled her to sit beside him, but there was an air conditioner behind her, making her feel cold, so she went to sit next to Yin Lu. It turned out Yin Lu had used his hand to test the air conditioner's temperature. This showed how cunning Yin Lu was. The food was served. Si-chun continuously toasted Yin Lu, but little did he know Yin Lu's alcohol tolerance was so high. When it was time to leave, only Si-chun was drunk. For safety, Wei Mi asked Yin Lu to take him home. Upon arriving home, they coaxed Yin Lu into lending Si-chun clothes and changing him. Yin Lu reluctantly did, as she said. Watching Yin Lu struggle to change Si-chun's clothes, Wei Mi couldn't stop laughing. It was too difficult, so Yin Lu covered Si-chun with a blanket and took off his clothes. Waking up in the morning, Si-chun was lying in his bed, hugging his own leg as he slept. Yin Lu gave Si-chun a thunderous kick and then chased him away with a duvet cover and a set of pajamas. Wei Mi woke up and didn't see Si-chun, so she asked Yin Lu. After learning that Yin Lu had chased Si-chun away, she told him to stop because Si-chun and she grew up together. Yin Lu and Wei Mi also promised to trust each other. Since they didn't know that Wei Mi had been impersonating Zheng Han all this time, Fang Mei and her friend saw the news that Wei Mi won the fashion design competition and thought it was Zheng Han. After rechecking the information, they learned that the two were identical twins. In the evening, seeing Yin Lu come home late and having made her wait, she got angry and went into her room. So the two communicated through the smart device. Si-chun gave Wei Mi a foreign fashion design album as an apology for drinking too much yesterday. Mid-conversation, Si-chun stared at Wei Mi and then removed a leaf from her hair. Overcome by jealousy, Yin Lu ran over to interrupt and wanted to pull Wei Mi away, but unexpectedly Si-chun also pulled her back. Too tired of the two of them, Wei Mi left and then the two guys went their separate ways. Yin Lu then had a fencing match with the mechanical engineering department and won. While he was undressing, his opponent came over to provoke him and wanted another match in the next period. Due to the excessive provocation and Yin Lu's high ego, he agreed. After the fencing match, Yuan Qing continued to cling to Yin Lu, trying to get his attention, but this time he firmly kept his distance from her. That evening, Lu Yao and Wei Mi talked about her difficulties when Yin Lu and Si-chun met. Wei Mi continued the story about Mu Zhe, but Lu Yao was shy and didn't want to talk about it. Wei Mi also didn't want to talk about Yin Lu and Si-chun because they always competed. At this point, Lu Yao remembered that someone had challenged Yin Lu to a fencing match. Seeing the name, Wei Mi recognized that this was the guy who lost the basketball game to Yin Lu, so she showed no interest. Lu Yao also suspected Yin Lu had a secondary account named Ji Qiu. Yin Lu was at home waiting for Wei Mi to return. While Yin Lu was showering, Wei Mi secretly entered the house, then went into Yin Lu's room and opened his computer to check Yin Lu's secondary account. Yin Lu also walked in and caught her red-handed. Afterward, Wei Mi lied, saying she was just looking at documents. She glanced at Yin Lu's body, swallowing countless times. Afterward, Wei Mi blurted out the name of Yin Lu's secondary account on the forum and chuckled. Then the two teased each other to the point of falling onto the bed, talking and laughing very happily. Yuan Qing and Fang Mei went out and met Zheng Han walking with Jiu Yu. They criticized Zheng Han for being fickle, but then she heard that Wei Mi and Zheng Han were twin sisters, so she felt it was strange and told Fang Mei to observe Zheng Han. The next day, the fencing match between Yin Lu and his opponent from mechanical engineering began. During the match, his opponent got injured in the knee. Yin Lu immediately went to help, but was criticized by the finance department for deliberately injuring his opponent. Afterward, the two departments argued to defend their teams. Wei Mi was preparing a cake for Yin Lu when she heard Jiu Yu say that Yin Lu had injured his roommate. Wei Mi then went to find Yin Lu, who was recalling the previous situation. Yin Lu then taught Wei Mi how to use a sword, and she unexpectedly kissed him, making him emotional. After being provoked, he also found it hard to control himself, so he approached her normally. Of course, all of this was recorded by Wei Mi. Back home, Wei Mi showed Yin Lu the video to prove that Huang Yu was walking completely normally. Wei Mi wanted to post it on the forum to prove Yin Lu's innocence, but he didn't want that, because with Huang Yu's arrogant and conceited personality, he feared the guy would take extreme actions, and as for the student council election, he didn't care much whether he was chosen or not. The next day, when she heard Wei Mi say to forgive Huang Yu, Lu Yao was surprised and showed Wei Mi the ballot. Seeing that Yin Lu's votes were surpassed, Wei Mi couldn't stand it, so she invited Huang Yu over and showed him the evidence, then told him he would never be as good as Yin Lu and warned him not to hurt Yin Lu, then left. Huang Yu angrily threw something heavily at Wei Mi afterward. They designed the artwork with Lu Yao, and Yin Lu also arrived later. Seeing Yin Lu's intimate gestures with Wei Mi, Si-chun found it hard to bear, so he spoke up to tease Yin Lu. Wei Mi cleverly made peace between the two. The group then brought their products to school to sell. Thanks to their enthusiasm and diligence, they sold quite a lot of products. Very quickly, The t-shirts were all sold out, and the money they earned would be collected and donated to needy students. The next day, the results of the Student Council President election were in. Yin Lu was still excellently elected. Yin Lu promised to try his best not to let everyone down and to lead the students to grow even further. At home, Wei Mi had prepared a surprise for him to congratulate him on winning the election. Yin Lu also had a gift for her, a clothing store, but Wei Mi worried she couldn't handle it because she was still studying. While talking, Wei Mi accidentally spluttered water on Yin Lu, and then the two played around and continued their affectionate gestures in front of everyone. After school, Wei Mi teased Lu Yao about Mu Zhe, then expressed her intention to open a real store. Lu Yao also agreed with her, and both began searching for a store with an extremely high price-performance ratio. While searching, she had a stomachache. Luckily, Si Chun was there and took her to his workplace to rest and take medicine. A moment later, Yin Lu arrived at the location Wei Mi sent to pick her up, but Si Chun wanted to talk to him privately, so Yin Lu told Wei Mi to go to the car first. Afterward, Si Chun also confessed that he had liked Wei Mi since childhood and intended to steal Wei Mi from Yin Lu. Very soon after, Yin Lu came out and reminded Wei Mi not to let herself get a stomachache. Then the two got in the car and left. At this time, Zheng Han received a call from the doctor, advising her to go to the hospital for another checkup. But while Zheng Han was not there, Fang Mei answered the phone and then immediately deleted the call from the doctor and became suspicious. Upon arriving home, Yin Lu carried Wei Mi all the way into her room, meticulously took off her shoes, and got her water. He reminded her to eat on time and said that if she got sick again, he would have many people carry her home. Wei Mi happily leaned her head on Yin Lu. The next day, Wei Mi returned home earlier than expected and opened the refrigerator to find ice cream. But unexpectedly, Yin Lu returned and revealed that he had given all the ice cream and fast food to Mu Zhe. Wei Mi suddenly became sad and resigned, even telling Yin Lu to remind Mu Zhe to take good care of her food. Afterward, Yin Lu made her a cup of lilac tea, which was good for her stomach. Unexpectedly, the conversation between the two became sweeter. While working, Wei Mi received a call from a store owner who wanted a rent to her. But when discussing it, Wei Mi found the rental price problematic, so she went home to tell Yin Lu about it. Si Chun then called her and wanted to treat her to a big meal and also gave her a VIP invitation to his graduation art exhibition. Wei Mi then agreed to go to the exhibition and also invited Yin Lu along. Hearing that, Si Chun was a bit sad. Afterward, his manager came to report that the application for the Royal Academy of Arts Study Abroad program that Si Chun wanted to attend had been processed. Wei Mi at home proactively did various chores like putting away things and shaving Yin Lu, but with his intelligence, Yin Lu knew Wei Mi had something to say. Afterward, she took out the contract for Yin Lu and said that the rental price was abnormal, but little did she know that it was all Yin Lu's doing. That evening, Lu Yao couldn't find her keys, so she called Wei Mi to ask. When Lu Yao suspected Mu Zhe took them, Wei Mi pretended Yin Lu was calling her and hung up. The next morning, Mu Zhe brought the car to Lu Yao's house. Indeed, Lu Yao already knew that he and Wei Mi had colluded to surprise her. At this moment, Lu Yao's heart fluttered and she gave Mu Zhe a chance to pursue her. Afterward, the two also shared their first hug. At the exhibition, both Wei Mi and Yin Lu arrived. While viewing Si Chun's artworks, Yin Lu went outside to answer Mu Zhe's call, while Wei Mi continued to explore, and she realized that the paintings were all moments from her and Si Chun's childhood. When she looked at the last painting, she was surprised to see that she was the focal point of the artwork. At this moment, Si Chun walked out with a bouquet of flowers in his hand. He thanked her for coming and confessed his feelings to Wei Mi, but unfortunately, Wei Mi refused him. Suddenly, all the lights went out, and Yin Lu quickly grabbed Wei Mi's hand and left. Wei Mi then accepted all her mistakes, but Yin Lu didn't blame her, and he always trusted her. On the way back, Yin Lu always tried to comfort Wei Mi. As for Si Chun, he sat alone sadly with his artworks, recalling previous memories, and finally put aside his dream of being with Wei Mi. The next day, Yin Lu went to the library to read when he overheard two people behind him discussing the video of Si Chun confessing to Wei Mi. He immediately went to demand the article's owner delete the video, but Fang Mei still had the live video and showed it to Yuan Qing. After compiling the available information, Yuan Qing finally realized that Wei Mi was Yin Lu's girlfriend, not Zheng Han. The four of them, Wei Mi, Yin Lu, Mu Zhe, and Lu Yao, teamed up to renovate the store with many incredibly adorable moments and no less romantic scenes for the two couples. Afterward, his mother also came to the store. Everyone was very surprised to see Yin Lu's mother walk into the store. The aunt was also quite surprised that Yin Lu and Wei Mi's relationship had progressed so far. In a fleeting moment, she almost revealed that this restaurant was thanks to her, but luckily Yin Lu quickly distracted her, and the aunt also cooperated well, so they escaped. But then the owner from the other day suddenly appeared and accidentally blurted everything out. Wei Mi heard this and changed her mind, no longer wanting to accept this store. She felt Yin Lu had helped her so much, and this was her dream, so she wanted to stand on her own 2 feet. Luckily, the aunt managed to persuade her, so Wei Mi accepted. Zheng Han, while studying, received a call from Jiu Yu about taking a poster photo for Wei Mi's store, but she refused and only wanted to focus on her studies. Seeing Zheng Han go out, Fang Mei secretly rummaged through her belongings and was unfortunately seen by Zheng Han. She quickly said she just wanted to borrow scissors. Zheng Han wasn't very suspicious. She took her library card and left. Fang Mei continued to rummage and found Zheng Han's medical records. She then took photos of them. The next day was also the grand opening of Wei Mi and Lu Yao's clothing store, which received a lot of support. Fang Mei showed Yuan Qing the medical records, and Yuan Qing understood all the issues. Then she whispered a plan to Fang Mei. Yin Lu and Mu Zhe were walking when Yuan Qing approached and spoke of a plan to organize a forum for the most outstanding students. Yin Lu agreed to this plan and asked the school to approve it, then left. Afterward, our 2 couples went on a picnic, and they truly enjoyed a lot of fun time together. Indeed, the scenery there was very beautiful. While Mu Zhe and Wei Mi were preparing the supplies, Yin Lu rode a horse like a prince from a fairy tale, teaching Wei Mi how to ride a horse, and the 2 romantically shared a passionate kiss. Yuan Qing the next day announced the student forum to the branch campus and insisted that Yu Wei Mi must be present. While working, Wei Mi received a message with a list of participants for the student forum, but to her shock, Zheng Han's name was also on it. Even so, Wei Mi still didn't want to bother Yin Lu, and she came up with a plan. She would ask Lu Yao to give her a makeup look very different from Zheng Han's, and she just needed to play her role as Yu Wei Mi well to succeed. The next morning, Yin Lu was working on his thesis when he received a message from Jiu Yu about both Zheng Han and Wei Mi being on the list. Although Zheng Han assured him not to worry and that Wei Mi would handle it, he still didn't want to risk it, so he stormed out and left. The day of the forum for the most outstanding students arrived. Wei Mi also came, but perhaps because Lu Yao's makeup made her look too different, even her boyfriend didn't recognize her. Since phones were not allowed during the forum, she turned hers off, which meant Yin Lu couldn't contact her. Yuan Qing then approached and asked Wei Mi to step out to talk. She pulled out evidence to expose the truth that Wei Mi had hidden all this time. Finally, she asked Wei Mi to choose one of 2 documents and publicly announce it before the forum. One was Yin Lu's document, the other was hers. Otherwise, Yuan Qing would upload all the evidence to the forum, including the contents of both documents. So, between the future of the twin sisters, Zheng Han and Wei Mi, and Yin Lu's reputation, which would Wei Mi choose? Wei Mi was about to choose one of the 2 folders of documents when Yin Lu suddenly appeared, telling her not to choose, but that he would choose his own document. Yuan Qing was surprised, but she still blamed Wei Mi, saying that because of Wei Mi, Yin Lu, who was once loved by many, was now criticized. She believed Wei Mi was not worthy of Yin Lu. Hearing this, Yin Lu interrupted her. Yuan Qing took the document from his hand and tore it up. In fact, there was nothing inside. Yuan Qing then expressed her feelings for Yin Lu, but he didn't care about her emotions. Yuan Qing, heartbroken, then left. Fang Mei then came and secretly filmed Yin Lu, and Wei Mi also felt guilty and told him not to let her affect his future. But Yin Lu had already considered all the consequences he might face, and these were not important. Wei Mi was the most important thing. Ultimately, the forum's participant list was fortunately changed in time, and Lu Yao stepped in for Wei Mi, so everything was resolved. Zheng Han was still worried about this matter when she received a message from Wei Mi that Yuan Qing knew everything. To ease Wei Mi's worries, Yin Lu took her to a pottery studio where there were many beautiful products. Wei Mi was delighted, and afterward, the 2 made pottery together. The next day, Wei Mi and Lu Yao painted together. While chatting, Lu Yao found Wei Mi a bit strange. Wei Mi only said there was an important matter to resolve at the library. Zheng Han told Jiu Yu that she wanted to give up her exchange student slot because she thought Wei Mi had affected her career and relationship for her sake. Jiu Yu understood her and supported all her decisions. Wei Mi at this moment found the teacher and wanted to confess to him. She told him the whole truth, which surprised the teacher. After she said more, the teacher received a phone call and then told her to go to the principal's office. Wei Mi then went to the office, and Zheng Han was also there. The principal presented a letter of accusation and a video that Fang Mei had filmed. Yin Lu and Wei Mi. At this moment, Mu Zhe and Jiu Yu found Yin Lu and told him about Zheng Han and Wei Mi going to confess. Yin Lu quickly left. Xichan went to Lu Yao to say goodbye to Wei Mi, but Lu Yao told him Wei Mi wasn't there, and she had an important matter she needed to resolve herself. Wei Mi at this moment took all the blame, but her sister took the blame for herself. Immediately after, Yin Lu walked in and was reprimanded by the principal. Yin Lu could only apologize and beg the teacher to understand Wei Mi and her sister and forgive them. Wei Mi, feeling guilty outside, was about to knock on the door when she remembered Yuan Qing's words to her, so she stopped and told herself that she couldn't be Yin Lu's weakness. Yin Lu then came out to comfort her, but Wei Mi said they should temporarily break up to calm down and told Yin Lu not to interfere in her affairs anymore. Yin Lu disagreed and tried to hold her back, but this time Wei Mi was firm, so she let go of Yin Lu and left. Sichun also came to find her. Wei Mi now could only sit alone and blame herself. While searching, Sichun and Yin Lu met. Yin Lu at this moment didn't want to have anything to do with Sichun, but Sichun continuously asked him about Wei Mi, so Yin Lu angrily grabbed his collar and confronted Sichun. Afterward, he yelled loudly to persuade Wei Mi, but it was in vain. Wei Mi cried a lot that night, ignoring Lu Yao and Mu Zhe outside the window, even though they tried to call her. Yin Lu also felt incredibly empty. He recalled his memories with Wei Mi and still believed their ending would be good. The next day, Wei Mi went to school and publicly revealed all the truth to the entire school. She apologized to everyone she had interacted with who had been deceived by her. She was ready to take responsibility and only hoped that everyone would be lenient with her sister and Yin Lu. Wei Mi went home that evening to pack her belongings, ready to leave the university. Yin Lu at this moment was already outside Wei Mi's house, but the two could only talk through the door separating them. He tried to persuade Wei Mi, but Wei Mi replied that he was no longer her boyfriend. Yin Lu sat down in a daze, unable to accept the truth, and Yin Lu's tears finally fell. Both sadly just looked at each other through the glass door. Despite his sadness, Yin Lu still made a plan for everyone to take good care of Wei Mi, not to let her do anything foolish, and to widely share the story of the two sisters on the forum so more people would know, and even Sichun asked to participate. Wei Mi pulled her luggage, preparing to leave, when Lu Yao and Mu Zhe were already waiting for her. Luckily, Lu Yao, as a best friend, convinced her to continue developing the store with Lu Yao and pursue her dream at school. Sichun brought Wei Mi's grandmother and went to meet the principal. That evening, Wei Mi continued with her work. Lu Yao saw that her mood was still not good, so she explained and comforted her and showed her the posts on the forum where many people forgave and sympathized with Wei Mi, and Wei Mi's smile began to appear. The next day, the homeroom teacher tried to persuade the principal to give Zheng Han a chance, but it seemed very difficult. At this moment, Yin Lu, Zheng Han, Jiuyu, and all the students were waiting for the school's results. The happy news was that Zheng Han still kept her exchange student slot, and she needed to quickly catch up on knowledge and needed to rank in the top 3 in the selection. Wei Mi also didn't need to drop out of school anymore. Zheng Han quickly reported the news to Wei Mi, who was incredibly surprised and rushed to Yin Lu's house to make up, but was blocked by Mu Zhe, so she could only ask Mu Zhe to tell Yin Lu that she would always wait for him. Afterward, she went to school and saw Yin Lu, so she went and hugged him tightly and thanked him, but he resolutely let go of her, expressing the pain and resentment she had brought him, then left with heavy steps. That evening, while Wei Mi was reminiscing about her memories with Yin Lu, Lu Yao came and gave her a bottle of water. While drinking and talking, Lu Yao, who had always been by her side, explained to her, so she gradually understood what love was. She promised herself not to lose Yin Lu again. Afterward, Lu Yao and Wei Mi went to the spot where she had rejected Yin Lu's confession. This time, she wanted to give back to Yin Lu what he had missed before, but she received a call from Mu Zhe, who said Yin Lu had a class schedule and couldn't come. Although very sad, she still expressed all her feelings and thoughts, and then fireworks were launched, and she smiled happily. The next morning, she went to the library because she knew Yin Lu would be there. Indeed, she found Yin Lu reading, but when she wasn't paying attention, he was gone. She called his name, but Yin Lu still hid from her. However, when he left the library, he still carried the lunchbox Wei Mi had brought him. Yin Lu then played ball with Mu Zhe, and through this, Wei Mi learned that Yin Lu had actually planned with Mu Zhe beforehand. Last night, he still came and stood right behind her and had felt her feelings. He did it this way so that both of them would understand each other's hearts and wouldn't easily let go of each other in the future. Sichun had an appointment with Wei Mi at a coffee shop and said goodbye to her. Wei Mi also took this opportunity to thank Sichun for sending his well wishes to her and Yin Lu, and for being her childhood companion. Afterward, they reenacted something they used to do when they were little. On his way, Yin Lu met Yuan Qing, and Yuan Qing apologized for what happened before, but he didn't blame her, only said a few words and left. Siwan then called him and said Wei Mi wanted to ask his aunt to return the store because she thought he definitely wouldn't forgive her. He then contacted Wei Mi, but couldn't reach her. So he switched to calling Mu Zhe and learned that Wei Mi was at the place where their love began. That evening, Lu Yao, Mu Zhe, Jiuyu, and Zheng Han were all present to support Wei Mi. Yin Lu then arrived. He looked up at the trees, all adorned with drawings by Wei Mi depicting their memories, and finally Wei Mi appeared before him. Wei Mi expressed all her thoughts, and her words pierced Yin Lu's heart. She even drew their future on a shirt, but Yin Lu replied that he didn't like it because for him, a confession was a boy's job. then followed a kiss between the two. Finally, everyone came out and congratulated them. This is where the story ends. Don't forget to like and subscribe to not miss out on more amazing videos. For now, goodbye and until next time.